Hi, this is Pat Johnson, your sociology instructor, and today we're doing another YouTube. This one is on Kuznets Curve. Kuznets Curve is all about how social stratification changes as societies acquire technology. Kuznets, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, took Lenski's society from hunter-gatherer to horticultural pastoral, agrarian, industrial, and post-industrial, and added the concept of social stratification. As you know from your reading, social stratification is the layering of society. If society had a very low level of social stratification, there wouldn't be that much difference between the wealthiest in the society and the poorest in the society. There would be fairly equal power and wealth in that society. If a society had a high level of social stratification, there would be a great distance between the wealthiest in the society and the poorest in the society. At a medium level of social stratification, there would be some people who would have more than others, but not the extreme we see in high social stratification. And there also might be a middle class. Okay, so let's look at the curve. If you remember from Lenski's societies, hunter and gathering societies had very low social stratification. There wasn't much difference if you were a hunter or a gatherer. Everybody contributed to that society. But as we move to horticultural pastoral society, as in the paper The Promise, the level of social stratification increases. You could have a bigger field than I do and produce more grain, wheat, whatever. You could also have a bigger herd of animals than I do, and therefore you would be wealthier. Still, though, there isn't an extreme social stratification. As we move on to agrarian society, look what happens. Social stratification reaches its peak in this society and in the early industrial era. Remember, in agrarian society, this is where the society was almost caste-like in its way that people were not given the opportunity to achieve much wealth if they were at the bottom of the society. So there were slaves in agrarian society. There were some very, very, very wealthy landowners and rulers of the society, but they were few and far between. Most people in this society were very poor, and there weren't a ton of people who were what we would equate to the middle class. Now remember when you watched the Marx YouTube, Karl Marx was all about the inequality at the beginning of the industrial era. See here on Kuznets Curve, it is also very high in its intensity of social stratification. Marx was saying that the capitalists owned too much of the wealth and the proletariat, the working class, didn't have much wealth at all. They were being exploited. But look what happens as the industrial era moves on. There is a lowering in the intensity of social stratification. The poor aren't quite as poor. They're gaining a little bit more wealth from their factory jobs. There is becoming mandatory education for their children. They are gaining a few more rights, such as a shorter work week than from the beginning of the industrial era. Things are getting better, and we see a rising of the middle class. Remember, though, the United States is no longer considered an industrial society. We are moving into post-industrial society. So what is predicted is that intensity of social stratification will start to increase again. Why? Well, think about it. Where are all those fairly well-paying jobs that the middle class used to have? They've gone overseas, or they're being replaced by computers, robots. So the middle class either has to go to school like many of you are, and gain skills that are able to earn them pay, a little bit of wealth in their society. And if they don't, then what is predicted is that they will sink to the bottom. Now, when some people move up and others sink to the bottom, that would increase the intensity of social stratification. So that's Kuznets Curve. Starting out low with hunter-gathering society, everybody's equal. Horticultural pastoral society starts to increase. Agrarian and early industrial at its peak. There's a huge difference between the wealthy and the poor. Starting to descend as industrial era moves on. There's a rising middle class, and then predicted to increase. Know how to not just draw Kuznets curve and label it, but also know the whys of the ups, the down, and the predicted going back up. That's what I'll be looking for. That's it, Kuznets curve.